The mountain forest had fallen silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence. The dangerous kind. Snow poured from the black sky in thick waves, covering ancient trees until they looked like ghostly giants standing guard over the wilderness. The wind screamed through the valleys, carrying the distant howls of wolves that refused to leave their dens on a night like this. Even the strongest hunters stayed indoors. Everyone believed that only death wandered outside during a blood moon storm. But someone else was out there. Someone wounded. Someone running out of time. A trail of dark red blood stained the untouched snow. Step after painful step, the unknown man fought to remain standing. His breathing was heavy, and every movement seemed to cost him another piece of his strength. His dark cloak was torn from countless battles, and beneath it, deep wounds covered his body. He glanced over his shoulder. Far behind him, shadows moved between the trees. They were hunting him. His golden eyes narrowed. They're still following. His voice was calm despite the danger. One more step. Then another. Finally, his exhausted body gave up. He collapsed beside the frozen river with a dull thud, disappearing beneath the falling snow. The storm slowly began burying him. Within minutes, no one would even know he had been there. At the edge of the Blood Moon Pack territory, a young woman carefully balanced a wooden basket against her hip. Her name was Elara. Only 21 years old, she was already known as the weakest Omega in the entire pack. Her old grey cloak barely protected her from the freezing wind. The fabric had been patched so many times that it no longer looked like one piece of clothing. Her boots leaked cold water with every step. Still, she kept walking. She had been sent into the forest long after sunset to collect herbs for the pack healer. Not because no one else could do it. Because no one cared if she came back. One of the older she-wolves had laughed before sending her away. "If the storm takes you," she had said with a cruel smile, "at least we'll have one less useless Omega to feed." The others laughed. Elara simply lowered her eyes. She never argued. Not because she was weak. Because she refused to become cruel like them. As the wind pushed against her, she wrapped her thin cloak tighter around herself. "I just need a few more herbs," she whispered. "Then I'll go home." Home. The word almost made her smile. But the smile quickly faded. She didn't really have one. Her parents had died when she was still a little girl. Since then, she had lived in a tiny storage room behind the kitchens, working from sunrise until long after everyone else had gone to sleep. No family. No friends. No one waiting for her. Only endless work. Yet somehow, her heart had never become bitter. She still believed kindness mattered. Even if the world had forgotten it. She knelt beside a cluster of winter herbs poking through the snow. Carefully, she picked them one by one and placed them inside her basket. Just then, she froze. The wind carried something unexpected. Not a howl. Not footsteps. Breathing. Very weak. Very slow. Elara looked around. "Hello." Only the storm answered. She stood and followed the sound toward the frozen river. The deeper she walked, the stronger the strange feeling became. Her wolf stirred uneasily inside her. Someone was nearby. Someone dying. Finally, she saw him. Half covered in snow lay the unconscious stranger. Blood stained the white ground around him. His breathing was so shallow she almost thought he was already gone. "Oh!" She dropped her basket and hurried toward him. The closer she came, the more shocked she became. He was covered in wounds. Some looked fresh. Others were old scars that spoke of countless battles. Whoever this man was, he had survived impossible things. As she gently rolled him onto his back, part of his torn shirt slipped aside. An ancient symbol had been burned into his shoulder. It shimmered faintly beneath the moonlight. Elara had never seen anything like it. What does this mark mean? There was no answer. She reached out with trembling fingers and touched his forehead. Ice cold. If she left him here, he would never wake again. She looked toward the distant lights of the village. Helping strangers was forbidden. Bringing outsiders into pack territory was considered betrayal. If anyone discovered him, both of them could be executed. Her hands began shaking. For one brief moment. Fear one. I can't. She whispered the words. I'll die too. She stood, turned away, took one step, then another. But before she had gone very far, a memory stopped her. She remembered another snowy night years ago. A frightened little girl. Cold. Hungry. Alone. She remembered collapsing beside the road after her parents died. She remembered believing she would never wake again. Then, a gentle old woman had wrapped her in a warm blanket. The woman had shared her last piece of bread. She had smiled kindly. Someone helped me once, the old woman had said. So today, I help you. That woman had died years later. But her kindness had never left Elara's heart. She slowly looked back at the wounded stranger. No. She whispered. I can't leave you. Without another thought, she hurried back. The man was far heavier than she expected. Every attempt to lift him ended with both of them slipping in the snow. Finally, she wrapped one of his arms across her shoulders. Come on. She struggled to breathe. You don't have permission to die tonight. Step by painful step, she dragged him through the blizzard. The abandoned hunting cabin sat deep inside the forest. Almost no one visited it anymore. The roof leaked. The fireplace barely worked. But it would keep him alive. She pushed the wooden door open with her shoulder. The freezing wind rushed inside. After nearly collapsing from exhaustion, she managed to pull the stranger onto an old bed covered in dusty blankets. She quickly closed the door. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. Only the crackling fire slowly came back to life. Elara knelt beside him. His wounds looked worse in the warm light. Several cuts had become infected. Others had clearly been made by silver blades. She carefully heated water over the fire. Then she cleaned every wound. Whenever he flinched, she apologized softly. I'm sorry. This will hurt. She searched through her basket for healing herbs. There were barely enough. She crushed the leaves between two stones before gently placing them over his injuries. Finally, she looked at the only blanket she owned. It was old, thin, but warm. Without hesitation, she tore it in half. One half covered his body. The other remained around her own shoulders. You need it more. Hours passed. The storm continued outside. Elara refused to sleep. Instead, she quietly watched the stranger's breathing. Please, stay alive. Just before sunrise, he suddenly moved. His hand grabbed her wrist. Strong. Far stronger than someone so badly injured should have been. Elara gasped. His golden eyes slowly opened. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. Sharp. Ancient. Filled with quiet power. He studied her face without speaking, almost as if trying to understand why she was there. His voice finally broke the silence. Low. Calm. You shouldn't help me. Elara smiled gently despite her exhaustion. It was the first smile anyone had seen from her that entire day. Someone once helped me. So? I couldn't leave you. The stranger remained silent. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Without fear. Without expecting anything. For a long moment, he simply watched her. Then his eyes slowly closed again as exhaustion pulled him back into unconsciousness. Elara let out the breath she had been holding. You'll be all right. She whispered the promise more to herself than to him. Outside, the storm finally began to calm. But another danger had already arrived. Several armored pack warriors stood beside the frozen river. One of them crouched beside the bloody footprints. His expression darkened. He came this way. Another warrior pointed toward the forest. Fresh drag marks disappeared between the snow-covered trees. Straight toward the abandoned hunting cabin. The captain slowly drew his sword. Spread out. Find the intruder. And anyone hiding him. Far away inside the cabin, Elara had no idea that death was already walking toward her door. The first rays of morning never reached the abandoned cabin. Dark clouds still covered the mountains, and the heavy snow continued falling in silence. Inside, the tiny fire crackled weakly, filling the room with just enough warmth to fight the bitter cold. Elara hadn't slept all night. She sat beside the wounded stranger, gently replacing the damp cloth on his forehead. His fever had begun to rise. She frowned with worry. If it gets any worse. She whispered, I don't know how to help you. She reached for the small pouch hanging from her belt. Only 3 healing herbs remained. She stared at them for a long moment. Those herbs were supposed to be delivered to the pack healer. Without them, she would certainly be punished. But punishment no longer mattered. Life did. She crushed the herbs into a paste and carefully spread them across the deepest wound on the stranger's side. Almost immediately, his breathing became steadier. A faint smile appeared on Elara's face. Good. You'll make it. Outside, the wind suddenly carried distant voices. Search every cabin. No one leaves this forest. Elara froze. The warriors. They were closer than she thought. She quickly blew out the lantern, leaving only the dim glow from the fireplace. For several terrifying seconds, boots crunched through the snow just outside the cabin. One guard stopped near the wooden door. Another examined the ground. The footprints end here. Elara's heart pounded so loudly she feared they would hear it. She looked toward the stranger. He was still unconscious. If they entered now, everything would be over. The guard slowly reached for the door handle. Then another warrior shouted from deeper in the forest. Captain! We found another trail. The captain hesitated. After a moment, he pulled his hand away. Move! Within seconds, their footsteps faded into the distance. Only then did Elara finally breathe again. She pressed a trembling hand against her chest. Thank you, Moon Goddess. She had survived. For now. Hours later, the stranger slowly opened his eyes again. This time, they stayed open. Golden. Sharp. Watching everything. He silently studied the small cabin. The broken roof. The cracked walls. The poor furniture. Then his gaze settled on Elara. She was asleep beside the bed, her head resting against the wooden frame. One of her hands still lightly held the edge of the blanket, as if she had refused to leave his side even while sleeping. Kael remained perfectly still. For many years, no one had stayed beside him without fear or expectation. Kings had served him because of duty, warriors because of loyalty, nobles because of ambition. But this young Omega, she expected nothing. His eyes drifted toward the torn blanket covering him, half wrapped around her, half wrapped around him. He understood immediately. She had given away her only warmth. His expression softened. Just slightly. The sound of a small cough woke Elara. She quickly sat upright. You woke up. She smiled with obvious relief. Your fever is lower. Kael slowly tried to sit. Pain shot through his body. Even he couldn't hide the slight wince. Without thinking, Elara hurried to support him. Don't move too quickly. Your wounds are still open. He looked at her quietly. You know I'm a stranger. I do. You know I could be dangerous. She nodded. Maybe. Then why trust me? Elara looked down at her hands before answering. Because if I only helped people I wasn't afraid of, I wouldn't really be kind. Kael stared at her. No one had ever answered him like that. Not in centuries. He almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he asked quietly, what is your name? Elara. And yours? For a brief second, the king of all Lycans considered telling the truth. Instead he simply answered, Kael. No title. No crown. Only his name. Elara repeated it softly. Kael. It suits you. He raised one eyebrow. What does that mean? She laughed quietly. It sounds strong. But also lonely. For the first time in many years, someone had seen through him without knowing who he truly was. Back at the Blood Moon Pack, breakfast had already begun. Long wooden tables filled the great hall. Strong warriors laughed loudly while servants hurried between them carrying food. Elara's empty seat was impossible to miss. Selena slowly placed her cup onto the table. A satisfied smile crossed her beautiful face. So, the little Omega never returned. One warrior shrugged. Maybe the storm finally claimed her. Several wolves laughed. Only the old pack healer frowned. Elara has never failed her duties. Selena folded her arms. Or perhaps she found a better place to hide. The Alpha looked toward the hall entrance. Send another search party. If she's alive, bring her back. His voice grew colder. If she's helping an outsider, bring her in chains. Selena lowered her eyes to hide her smile. Everything was happening exactly as she wanted. Far away in the cabin, Elara prepared a simple breakfast. She divided one small piece of bread into 2 equal halves. Kael noticed immediately. That's all you have? She smiled. It's enough. He looked at the bread. Then at her thin face. You haven't eaten properly. I'm used to it. Those words disturbed him more than he expected. No one should ever become used to hunger. Especially not someone with such a gentle heart. Without another word, Kael quietly handed his piece back. She blinked. You need it. So do you. I've survived worse. Elara hesitated. I can't. You can. His calm voice left little room for argument. She finally accepted it. Thank you. As she ate, Kael watched the happiness on her face over something as small as half a piece of bread. He had ruled kingdoms. Owned treasures beyond counting. Yet somehow, that simple smile felt more valuable than all of them. The afternoon passed peacefully. For the first time in years, Kael simply rested. No meetings. No wars. No politics. Only silence. Then, tiny footsteps approached outside. Elara immediately stood. Oh no. It must be them. She hurried toward the window. Instead of warriors, a small boy stood outside carrying a bundle of firewood almost larger than himself. His clothes were patched. His hands were red from the cold. He knocked softly. Sister Elara. I brought wood. Elara smiled warmly. Finn. She hurried outside. Kael watched through the window. The little pup immediately hugged her. I was worried. You didn't come back. I'm all right. She gently brushed snow from his hair. Did anyone see you? Finn shook his head. I sneaked away. I knew you'd be here. She sighed. You shouldn't take risks for me. Finn looked down. You always take risks for me. I wanted to help. Kael silently observed everything. The boy couldn't fully shift into a wolf. His wolf aura was weak. Fragile. Many packs would consider him useless. Yet Elara treated him with nothing but love. She introduced them. Finn. This is Kael. Finn peeked cautiously around Elara. Are you the man she saved? Kael nodded. I am. Finn smiled brightly. Then you have to get better. She's been worrying all night. Kael looked at Elara. She immediately became embarrassed. I wasn't worrying. Finn laughed. Yes, you were. Kael's lips finally curved into the smallest smile. The first genuine smile he had shown in a very long time. For a moment, the lonely cabin felt almost like a family. None of them noticed another pair of eyes watching from far beyond the trees. Luna Selena stood hidden behind a snow-covered pine. Her sharp gaze followed every movement. She watched Elara smile at the mysterious stranger. She watched Finn carry supplies into the cabin. Her expression slowly darkened. So, you've been hiding a man. She expected anger. Instead, she felt excitement. This secret was worth far more than simple punishment. No, she could destroy Elara completely. Selena quietly stepped backward into the forest. I won't expose you today. She whispered to herself. I'll wait. The bigger the lie, the sweeter the humiliation. She disappeared into the falling snow. Inside the cabin, Kael looked toward the forest. His sharp instincts sensed something. Someone had been watching. His golden eyes narrowed. But whoever it was had already vanished. The game had begun, and neither Elara nor the Blood Moon Pack had any idea that destiny was already moving toward them. The snowstorm finally passed. Morning sunlight poured over the white mountains, making every frozen tree sparkle like crystal. To most of the Blood Moon Pack, it looked like the beginning of another ordinary day. But destiny had already changed. Inside the abandoned cabin, Elara carefully opened the wooden shutters, letting warm sunlight fill the small room. For the first time since finding the wounded stranger, she allowed herself to smile. "You made it through the night." Kael stood near the window, his broad shoulders wrapped in the same old blanket she had given him. His wounds had begun to heal far faster than any normal wolf's. Even so, he continued pretending to be weak. He had not forgotten why he had entered the kingdoms in disguise. For months, rumors had reached the royal palace. Pack leaders abusing omegas. Children forced into labor. Corrupt alphas growing richer while the weak suffered. As Lycan King, Kael could have marched in with an army and punished them all. But fear often hid the truth. Kindness never did. That was why he traveled alone. That was why he hid his crown. Only when people believed he was powerless did they reveal who they truly were. And so far, no one had surprised him more than Elara. She had nothing. Yet she had given everything. Elara placed a small wooden bowl in front of him. "I made soup." Kael looked inside. It was little more than melted snow, wild herbs, and a few tiny mushrooms. "You should eat too," he said. She laughed softly. "I already did." Kael looked at the empty shelves. There was no other bowl. She was lying. Again. He quietly pushed the soup back toward her. "We'll share." She blinked. "But you need your strength." "So do you." Their eyes met for a long moment. Without another word, Elara divided the soup into two smaller bowls. Neither of them spoke while eating. Somehow, the silence felt comfortable. Later that morning, Kael stepped outside for the first time. Fresh snow reached almost to his knees. The mountain air was sharp and clean. He slowly stretched his injured shoulder. The deep wounds should have taken weeks to heal. Instead, most had already closed. Elara noticed. Her eyes widened. "You're healing so fast." Kael remained calm. "I've always healed quickly." She nodded, accepting the simple answer. She never imagined the truth. Only the royal Lycan bloodline possessed healing like this. As they gathered firewood together, Elara glanced toward him. "You don't talk much." Kael picked up another log. "I've spent most of my life listening." "What do you hear?" He looked toward the distant mountains. "Fear." The single word carried more sadness than anger. Elara lowered her eyes. "I hear it too." For the first time in years, Kael felt someone truly understood him. Meanwhile, back inside the Blood Moon Pack village, life was very different. Elara's absence had become the favorite topic of conversation. Servants whispered while carrying buckets of water. Warriors laughed openly. "I knew she would run away someday. Probably found a rogue to hide with. Maybe she's dead. Would anyone even notice?" Laughter echoed through the courtyard. Only one small figure remained silent. Finn. The 8-year-old wolf pup sat alone beside the stable, hugging his knees. He knew Elara would never abandon him. Never. An older boy walked over with two friends. "There he is." The broken pup. Finn lowered his head. The boys circled him. "My father says weak wolves should live with weak omegas." One shoved him. Another grabbed his worn scarf. "You miss your omega sister." Finn tried to pull away. "Leave me alone." Instead, they pushed him into the snow. His unfinished wolf ears appeared for a moment before disappearing again. The boys burst into laughter. "Look at him. He can't even shift properly." Just then, a firm voice cut through the air. "That's enough." The boys immediately stepped back. It was the elderly healer. His expression was filled with disappointment. "Strength is measured by how you protect others, not by how loudly you laugh." The boys hurried away without another word. The healer helped Finn stand. Are you hurt? Finn shook his head. I just miss Elara. The old wolf sighed quietly. So do I. Deep inside the forest, Elara gathered more herbs while Kael quietly followed. This place is beautiful, he said. It wasn't always. She smiled sadly. My parents used to bring me here. They believed every flower carried the moon goddess' blessing. Kael watched her kneel beside a patch of blue winter flowers. My mother loved these. She gently touched one of the petals. When she died, I kept coming here. It makes me feel close to her. Kael remained silent. He understood loss better than anyone. He had buried friends, brothers, entire generations of warriors. A king learned to hide grief, but it never truly disappeared. You still miss them? Elara nodded. Every day. He looked toward the sky. So do I. She turned toward him. You lost your family too. A long silence followed. Finally. Long ago. It wasn't a lie. It simply wasn't the whole truth. That afternoon, Finn secretly slipped away from the village. He carried a small cloth bag filled with bread. Almost all of it had been saved from his own meals. When he reached the cabin, Elara opened the door in surprise. Finn. You shouldn't be here. He smiled proudly. I brought food. She immediately hugged him. You silly pup. You need this more than we do. He looked up at her. You always feed me. So today, I feed you. Tears filled Elara's eyes. Before she could speak, Kael stepped forward. Finn looked at him carefully. You look stronger. I feel stronger. The boy grinned. Good. I prayed to the moon goddess. So she'd help you. Kael blinked. You prayed for someone you don't even know. Finn nodded without hesitation. Elara said kind people deserve kindness. For several seconds, Kael couldn't answer. The words settled deep inside him. He had met thousands of nobles, hundreds of alphas, countless warriors. Yet none had shown the simple goodness this child carried. Perhaps the future of the kingdom did not belong to powerful rulers. Perhaps it belonged to people like Elara and Finn. But not everyone believed in kindness. Far away, hidden behind thick pine trees, another pair of eyes watched the cabin. Selena. She had followed Finn without being seen. Now, she finally had proof. A strange man. An abandoned cabin. Secret meetings. Food being delivered. She smiled slowly. This is even better than I imagined. Her mind raced with possibilities. She could report them immediately. The Alpha would arrest Elara. But that would end everything too quickly. No. Selena wanted something far crueler. She wanted the entire pack to watch Elara fall. She wanted the weak Omega to be called a traitor before every wolf. She wanted Finn punished for helping her. And she wanted the mysterious stranger dragged through the village in chains. Only then would Elara lose everything. Selena quietly stepped away from the trees. A cold smile spread across her face. The trap begins now. She disappeared into the forest, heading straight toward the Alpha's lodge. Back inside the cabin, Kael suddenly looked toward the window. His sharp instincts sensed danger. Someone had been there, watching, but the scent had already faded into the wind. He slowly narrowed his golden eyes. Without realizing it, the first move against Elara had already been made. And before another sunrise, the weakest Omega in the Blood Moon Pack would be accused of the greatest crime imaginable. The sun disappeared behind dark grey clouds as evening settled over the Blood Moon Pack. A cold wind swept through the village, carrying the smell of pine, smoke, and fresh snow. Most wolves hurried indoors before nightfall, but one woman walked through the center of the village with quiet confidence. Selena. A satisfied smile rested on her lips. Every step brought her closer to destroying the one person she had always hated. Not because Elara was powerful, but because she wasn't. Despite being the weakest Omega, Elara had something Selena could never buy. The trust of innocent hearts. Children smiled when they saw Elara. Old servants secretly thanked her. Even broken souls found comfort in her gentle words. Selena hated that. Kindness attracted love far more easily than beauty ever could. She stopped outside the Alpha's lodge and took a slow breath before stepping inside. The great hall was warm, lit by roaring fires that danced across stone walls decorated with hunting trophies. Warriors laughed loudly around long wooden tables while servants silently refilled cups. At the head of the hall sat Alpha Darius. Large. Proud. A leader respected for his strength but feared for his temper. He barely looked up. "What is it, Selena?" She bowed gracefully. "My Alpha. I believe I've discovered a traitor." The laughter inside the hall stopped. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. Darius slowly placed his cup onto the table. "Explain." Selena lowered her voice, making every word sound heavy. "For 3 nights. I've followed Elara." Several wolves laughed. "The useless Omega." Selena nodded. "Yes. I saw her hiding someone. A strange man. He isn't from our pack. He carries himself like a trained warrior." Murmurs spread across the room. One beater frowned. "Did you report him immediately?" Selena sighed dramatically. "I wanted proof. I feared no one would believe me." Darius stood. His powerful wolf aura filled the room. "If an outsider has entered my territory without permission, he dies." Selena lowered her eyes, hiding the smile that threatened to appear. Everything was going exactly as planned. Far away, unaware of the growing danger, Elara prepared to leave the cabin. She carefully packed fresh herbs into a small cloth bag. Kael watched quietly. "You have to go back." She nodded. "If I don't, they'll know something is wrong." "You could stay." She smiled sadly. "I wish I could. But Finn is there. So are the servants. If I disappear forever, they'll suffer because of me." Kael admired her even more. Even after everything the pack had done, she still worried about others before herself. "You always think about everyone else." She looked down. "My mother used to say, kindness only matters when it costs something." Kael repeated the words silently. Kindness only matters when it costs something. He had heard thousands of speeches in royal courts. Yet none felt as true as that simple sentence. Before Elara could leave, Finn suddenly burst through the cabin door, breathing heavily. "Elara!" She rushed toward him. "What happened?" "They know. They know about Kael." Her face turned pale. "Who knows?" "I heard the guards talking. They're searching the forest again. They think someone is hiding here." Kael calmly stepped forward. "How many?" Finn swallowed hard. "I counted 20. And more are coming." Elara looked at Kael with frightened eyes. "You have to leave. Now." He remained perfectly still. "My wounds aren't fully healed. I'll slow them down." She shook her head immediately. "No. I won't let them hurt you." Kael studied her face. "You barely know me." Her answer came without hesitation. "I don't need to. No one deserves to die alone." Those words struck him harder than any sword ever could. For centuries, people had feared him, respected him, obeyed him. But this young Omega simply refused to abandon him. Outside, snow crunched beneath heavy boots. Dozens of warriors spread through the forest in organized lines. Search every cabin, every cave, every hiding place. Alpha Darius himself rode at the front of the group. Selena followed close behind. She pointed toward the distant trees. "I saw smoke coming from that direction." The Alpha nodded. "Move." The hunt had begun. Back inside the cabin, Kael quietly looked toward the fireplace. His expression remained calm. Far calmer than it should have been. Elara noticed. "Aren't you afraid?" He met her eyes. "I've learned that fear solves very little." She gave a nervous laugh. I wish I were that brave. You are. She blinked. What? You've faced danger every day of your life. You simply never called it courage. The word stayed with her. No one had ever called her brave before. Not once. Suddenly, a loud horn echoed through the forest. The search party had reached the outer trees. Finn's small hands began shaking. They're here. Elara looked around desperately. There has to be another way. Kael walked toward the back of the cabin. Behind an old wooden shelf was a narrow passage leading into the mountains. You knew this was here? Elara asked. I noticed the draft earlier. He pushed the hidden door open. A dark tunnel stretched into the rocks. You and Finn go. She stared at him in disbelief. What about you? I'll follow. No. She stepped in front of him. I won't leave you. Kael's voice became firmer. You must. She shook her head. I said no. If they find you, I'll tell them I acted alone. You can escape. Kael looked directly into her eyes. You'd sacrifice yourself. She answered so softly that only he could hear. If it saves innocent people. Yes. Silence filled the cabin. Even Finn stopped breathing. Kael had spent years searching for honesty, searching for loyalty, searching for hearts untouched by greed. And now, he had found all of them inside one fragile Omega. For the first time in many years. His carefully built emotional walls cracked. Just a little. A violent bang shook the front door. Open. Another crash followed. By order of Alpha Darius. Finn gasped. They're here. Elara quickly pushed the frightened pup toward the tunnel. Go. I won't leave you. You have to. Tears rolled down Finn's cheeks. She knelt in front of him and gently held his face. Listen to me. You are brave. You are kind. And one day, you'll become a wolf your parents would be proud of. Finn threw his arms around her. I don't want to lose you. She hugged him tightly. You won't. I promise. Kael watched the heartbreaking scene in silence. Something deep inside him stirred. This was no longer a mission. No longer an investigation. This had become personal. The banging grew louder. The wooden door cracked. Outside, Alpha Darius shouted. Break it down. Warriors rammed a heavy log against the entrance. The old wood splintered. Another hit. Crack. Another. The hinges began giving way. Kael slowly stepped beside Elara. His golden eyes became colder than the winter itself. His voice remained quiet. But every word carried absolute certainty. They're coming. Elara nodded. I'm sorry. For dragging you into this. He looked at her. No. You saved my life. I won't forget that. The door exploded inward. Snow and freezing wind rushed into the cabin. Armed warriors poured inside with swords raised. Alpha Darius entered behind them. His eyes immediately locked onto Kael. So, the traitor was real. Selena stepped through the broken doorway moments later. She looked at Elara with cruel satisfaction. I warned everyone. I told them the little Omega was hiding an enemy. The warriors surrounded the room. There was nowhere left to run. Elara slowly stepped in front of Kael, shielding him with nothing but her own body. Her voice trembled. But her courage did not. If you want him, you'll have to go through me first. For one long, stunned moment, no Omega in the history of the Blood Moon Pack had ever dared stand between an Alpha's warriors and their prey. But Elara did. And although no one realized it yet, that single act of courage was about to change the fate of an entire kingdom. The cold wind rushed through the shattered doorway. Snowflakes swirled across the cabin floor as armed warriors tightened their circle around Elara and Kael. Their swords reflected the pale winter light, turning the small cabin into a prison. Elara stood perfectly still. Her hands trembled. But she did not move aside. She remained between the warriors and the wounded stranger she had promised to protect. Alpha Darius stepped forward, his heavy boots echoing against the wooden floor. His sharp eyes swept across the room before settling on Elara. So it is true. You've been hiding an outsider. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came before a storm. Elara swallowed hard. My alpha. Please. He isn't your enemy. Before she could finish, Selena laughed softly. Listen to her. She's defending him. I told everyone she had betrayed the pack. The warriors exchanged suspicious glances. Kael remained silent behind Elara. His expression revealed nothing. He had defeated armies. Destroyed kingdoms that threatened innocent lives. Every instinct inside him told him to end this in seconds. One command. One movement. And every sword in this room would fall. But he didn't move. Not yet. He still needed to know one thing. Would anyone in this pack choose justice over fear? Alpha Darius slowly walked around the cabin. His eyes examined everything. The healing herbs. The torn blanket. The bowl of unfinished soup. Nothing escaped his attention. Finally, he stopped beside the bed. So, you fed him? Elara nodded quietly. Yes. You treated his wounds? Yes. You hid him from your alpha? Another long silence. Then she answered. Yes. Gasps filled the cabin. Several warriors looked shocked. She hadn't even tried to deny it. Selena smiled proudly. There. She admits everything. Elara quickly raised her voice. I hid him because he would have died. He was injured. He needed help. Darius turned toward her. You chose a stranger over your own pack. No. I chose a life. The answer echoed through the room. For one brief second. Even some of the warriors hesitated. But Selena stepped forward before doubt could grow. She speaks like rogues. Maybe she's one of them. The cruel words spread like poison. Traitor. Spy. Enemy. The whispers grew louder. Finn suddenly ran into the cabin. Stop. The little pup pushed through the warriors until he reached Elara. She didn't do anything wrong. One guard grabbed Finn's arm. Stay back. The frightened child struggled. She only saved him. She saves everyone. Please don't hurt her. The warrior shoved him backward. Finn fell hard onto the wooden floor. Elara immediately rushed to him. Finn. She helped him stand, checking his scraped hands. Are you hurt? The little boy shook his head, tears filling his eyes. I'm sorry. I couldn't stop them. Elara gently hugged him. It's all right. You were very brave. Kael watched the scene silently. His jaw tightened. No child should ever cry like that. No innocent heart should fear speaking the truth. Yet here, kindness was treated like a crime. Alpha Darius pointed his sword toward Kael. You. Stand. Kael slowly rose to his feet. Despite his injuries, his posture remained straight. Confident. The Alpha noticed. What pack are you from? Kael answered calmly. I travel alone. Name. Kael. No family. No. No territory. No. Selena folded her arms. A rogue. I knew it. Darius narrowed his eyes. Why enter my land? Kael met his gaze without fear. I collapsed. She found me. And she saved my life. His honesty surprised everyone. He made no excuse. No lie. No attempt to escape blame. The Alpha took another step forward. And now? Kael answered quietly. I owe her a debt. Those simple words made Elara look back at him. Their eyes met. For a moment. The noisy cabin disappeared. Only silence remained between them. Selena noticed. Jealousy burned inside her. Even now. Even surrounded by soldiers. The stranger looked only at Elara. She couldn't allow that. Not when she had spent years building her perfect image. She suddenly spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. My Alpha. May I search the Omega's room? Elara looked confused. My room. Selena smiled sweetly. If you're innocent, you have nothing to fear. Something inside Kael immediately sensed danger. This wasn't justice. It was a trap. The search party returned to the village before sunset. The entire Blood Moon pack gathered in the central square. Warriors, servants, children, elders. Everyone had heard rumors of the traitorous Omega. Elara and Kael walked through the village surrounded by guards. Finn followed behind, refusing to leave her side despite repeated orders. People stared. Some whispered. Others laughed. There she is. I always knew she was strange. Traitors deserved death. One old servant quietly lowered her head. Tears filled her eyes. She knew the truth. Elara had spent years helping everyone, even those who treated her cruelly. Yet no one dared speak. Fear silenced every kind heart. Kael noticed. Every face. Every expression. Every silence. He was judging them all. The village square became completely quiet as Alpha Darius climbed onto the stone platform. This gathering will decide whether Omega Elara has betrayed the Blood Moon pack. His deep voice echoed across the snow-covered courtyard. 2 guards forced Elara to stand in the center. Her wrists were tied with rough rope. Finn cried openly. She didn't do anything. A guard pulled him away. Kael's hands slowly closed into fists. Still, he remained silent. Not yet. Selena stepped forward carrying a small wooden chest. She placed it before the Alpha. My Alpha. Our search is complete. She slowly opened the lid. The crowd gasped. Inside lay a detailed royal map. Several silver daggers. A blood-stained cloak. And a sealed letter. Every item appeared to prove only one thing. Someone inside the pack had been helping enemies. Darius looked toward Elara. Explain. She stared at the chest in complete shock. I've never seen those before. Selena laughed. They were hidden beneath her bed. Elara shook her head desperately. No. Someone planted them. Please believe me. The Alpha's expression never changed. Do you have proof? She opened her mouth. Then slowly closed it again. She had none. None at all. Kael immediately understood. The evidence was fake. Poorly prepared. Too convenient. He could expose the lie right now. He could reveal himself. He could order the royal guard to arrest every corrupt leader in the valley. His fingers brushed the ancient mark hidden beneath his sleeve. One signal. That was all it would take. But then, he looked at Elara. Would she reveal his identity to save herself? Or would she continue protecting him? The answer would reveal the truth about her heart forever. Darius looked at her one final time. Speak. Elara slowly raised her head. Tears filled her eyes. Not tears of fear. Tears of heartbreak. She knew exactly what was happening. If she explained where she had really been, Kael would die. If she stayed silent, she would be condemned as a traitor. She closed her eyes for one painful moment. Then whispered, I have nothing to say. The square exploded with angry voices. She admitted it. She's guilty. Punish the traitor. Only Finn screamed through the crowd. No. You're all wrong. Elara looked toward him and forced a gentle smile despite the tears running down her face. It's all right, Finn. The little pup cried even harder. No. It isn't. From the edge of the crowd, Kael watched silently. His golden eyes darkened. She had chosen silence. Not to protect herself, but to protect him. For the first time in centuries, the Lycan King felt something he had almost forgotten. His heart. And with every cruel word thrown at the gentle Omega, his patience came closer to its end. The cold wind rushed through the shattered doorway. Snowflakes swirled across the cabin floor as armed warriors tightened their circle around Elara and Kael. Their swords reflected the pale winter light, turning the small cabin into a prison. Elara stood perfectly still. Her hands trembled. But she did not move aside. She remained between the warriors and the wounded stranger she had promised to protect. Alpha Darius stepped forward, his heavy boots echoing against the wooden floor. His sharp eyes swept across the room before settling on Elara. So it is true. You've been hiding an outsider. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came before a storm. Elara swallowed hard. My Alpha. Please. He isn't your enemy. Before she could finish, Selena laughed softly. Listen to her. She's defending him. I told everyone she had betrayed the pack. The warriors exchanged suspicious glances. Kael remained silent behind Elara. His expression revealed nothing. He had defeated armies. Destroyed kingdoms that threatened innocent lives. Every instinct inside him told him to end this in seconds. One command. One movement. And every sword in this room would fall. But he didn't move. Not yet. He still needed to know one thing. Would anyone in this pack choose justice over fear? Alpha Darius slowly walked around the cabin. His eyes examined everything. The healing herbs. The torn blanket. The bowl of unfinished soup. Nothing escaped his attention. Finally, he stopped beside the bed. So, you fed him? Elara nodded quietly. Yes. You treated his wounds? Yes. You hid him from your Alpha? Another long silence. Then she answered. Yes. Gasps filled the cabin. Several warriors looked shocked. She hadn't even tried to deny it. Selena smiled proudly. There. She admits everything. Elara quickly raised her voice. I hid him because he would have died. He was injured. He needed help. Darius turned toward her. You chose a stranger over your own pack. No. I chose a life. The answer echoed through the room. For one brief second. Even some of the warriors hesitated. But Selena stepped forward before doubt could grow. She speaks like rogues. Maybe she's one of them. The cruel words spread like poison. Traitor. Spy. Enemy. The whispers grew louder. Finn suddenly ran into the cabin. Stop. The little pup pushed through the warriors until he reached Elara. She didn't do anything wrong. One guard grabbed Finn's arm. Stay back. The frightened child struggled. She only saved him. She saves everyone. Please don't hurt her. The warrior shoved him backward. Finn fell hard onto the wooden floor. Elara immediately rushed to him. Finn. She helped him stand, checking his scraped hands. Are you hurt? The little boy shook his head, tears filling his eyes. I'm sorry. I couldn't stop them. Elara gently hugged him. It's all right. You were very brave. Kael watched the scene silently. His jaw tightened. No child should ever cry like that. No innocent heart should fear speaking the truth. Yet here, kindness was treated like a crime. Alpha Darius pointed his sword toward Kael. You. Stand. Kael slowly rose to his feet. Despite his injuries, his posture remained straight. Confident. The Alpha noticed. What pack are you from? Kael answered calmly. I travel alone. Name. Kael. No family. No. No territory. No. Selena folded her arms. A rogue. I knew it. Darius narrowed his eyes. Why enter my land? Kael met his gaze without fear. I collapsed. She found me. And she saved my life. His honesty surprised everyone. He made no excuse. No lie. No attempt to escape blame. The Alpha took another step forward. And now? Kael answered quietly. I owe her a debt. Those simple words made Elara look back at him. Their eyes met. For a moment. The noisy cabin disappeared. Only silence remained between them. Selena noticed. Jealousy burned inside her. Even now. Even surrounded by soldiers. The stranger looked only at Elara. She couldn't allow that. Not when she had spent years building her perfect image. She suddenly spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. My Alpha. May I search the Omega's room? Elara looked confused. My room. Selena smiled sweetly. If you're innocent, you have nothing to fear. Something inside Kael immediately sensed danger. This wasn't justice. It was a trap. The search party returned to the village before sunset. The entire Blood Moon pack gathered in the central square. Warriors, servants, children, elders. Everyone had heard rumors of the traitorous Omega. Elara and Kael walked through the village surrounded by guards. Finn followed behind, refusing to leave her side despite repeated orders. People stared. Some whispered. Others laughed. There she is. I always knew she was strange. Traitors deserve death. One old servant quietly lowered her head. Tears filled her eyes. She knew the truth. Elara had spent years helping everyone, even those who treated her cruelly. Yet no one dared speak. Fear silenced every kind heart. Kael noticed. Every face. Every expression. Every silence. He was judging them all. The village square became completely quiet as Alpha Darius climbed onto the stone platform. This gathering will decide whether Omega Elara has betrayed the Blood Moon pack. His deep voice echoed across the snow-covered courtyard. 2 guards forced Elara to stand in the center. Her wrists were tied with rough rope. Finn cried openly. She didn't do anything. A guard pulled him away. Kael's hands slowly closed into fists. Still, he remained silent. Not yet. Selena stepped forward carrying a small wooden chest. She placed it before the Alpha. My Alpha. Our search is complete. She slowly opened the lid. The crowd gasped. Inside lay a detailed royal map. Several silver daggers. A blood-stained cloak. And a sealed letter. Every item appeared to prove only one thing. Someone inside the pack had been helping enemies. Darius looked toward Elara. Explain. She stared at the chest in complete shock. I've never seen those before. Selena laughed. They were hidden beneath her bed. Elara shook her head desperately. No. Someone planted them. Please believe me. The Alpha's expression never changed. Do you have proof? She opened her mouth, then slowly closed it again. She had none. None at all. Kael immediately understood. The evidence was fake. Poorly prepared. Too convenient. He could expose the lie right now. He could reveal himself. He could order the royal guard to arrest every corrupt leader in the valley. His fingers brushed the ancient mark hidden beneath his sleeve. One signal. That was all it would take. But then, he looked at Elara. Would she reveal his identity to save herself? Or would she continue protecting him? The answer would reveal the truth about her heart forever. Darius looked at her one final time. Speak. Elara slowly raised her head. Tears filled her eyes. Not tears of fear. Tears of heartbreak. She knew exactly what was happening. If she explained where she had really been, Kael would die. If she stayed silent, she would be condemned as a traitor. She closed her eyes for one painful moment. Then whispered, I have nothing to say. The square exploded with angry voices. She admitted it. She's guilty. Punish the traitor. Only Finn screamed through the crowd. No. You're all wrong. Elara looked toward him and forced a gentle smile despite the tears running down her face. It's all right, Finn. The little pup cried even harder. No. It isn't. From the edge of the crowd, Kael watched silently. His golden eyes darkened. She had chosen silence. Not to protect herself, but to protect him. For the first time in centuries, the Lycan King felt something he had almost forgotten. His heart. And with every cruel word thrown at the gentle Omega, his patience came closer to its end. The cries of the crowd echoed through the frozen village square. Traitor! Punish her! She betrayed the Blood Moon pack. The voices came from every direction, each one striking Elara harder than a blade. She stood in the center of the square with her hands bound behind her back. Snowflakes settled gently on her hair, but she barely noticed the cold anymore. The pain inside her heart was far greater. She slowly looked around the crowd. Many of the faces were familiar. The old servant whose injured hand she had bandaged. The hunter whose child she had cared for during a fever. The elderly widow she had secretly fed through the winter. People she had helped for years. Now, most of them looked away. Fear had stolen their courage. Only Finn refused to lower his eyes. He pushed against the warriors holding him. "She isn't a traitor. You know she isn't." His small voice disappeared beneath the angry shouting. Alpha Darius raised one hand. Silence slowly returned. He looked directly at Elara. "Omega Elara. You have one last chance. Tell us who the stranger really is. Tell us why you helped him. You may still receive mercy." Every eye turned toward her. The village held its breath. Elara slowly lifted her head. She looked toward Kael. He stood several steps away, surrounded by guards, his expression calm despite the danger. Their eyes met. For a brief moment. No words were needed. Kael silently gave the smallest shake of his head. "Do not tell them." Elara understood. She took a slow breath. "My Alpha." "I cannot answer." A loud gasp swept through the square. Selena smiled triumphantly. "There! She chooses the stranger over her own pack." The crowd erupted again. "She's guilty. Punish her. Throw her into the prison." Darius's face hardened. "So be it. Take them both." Heavy iron chains were locked around Elara's wrists. The cold metal bit into her skin. She didn't resist. She simply looked back at Finn one last time. The little pup broke free from the warriors and ran toward her. "No. Please. Don't take her." He wrapped both arms around her waist, refusing to let go. One guard stepped forward. "Move aside." Finn shook his head wildly. "I won't. I won't let her go." The guard reached for him. Before he could touch the frightened child, Elara gently knelt despite the chains. She smiled through her tears. "Finn. You have to be brave." "I don't want to be brave. I want you to stay." Her heart shattered. She carefully wiped away his tears with her bound hands. "Listen to me. No matter what happens. Never let the world take your kindness. They can take your home. They can take your food. They can even take your freedom. But never. Never let them take your heart." Finn cried harder. "I'll come for you. I promise." Elara kissed his forehead. "I know you will." The guards finally pulled him away. His desperate cries echoed across the village. "Elara. Please. I'll save you." Even some of the older wolves lowered their heads in shame. Kael watched everything. His expression never changed. But inside, a storm was growing. He had seen countless executions. Watched kings betray their own blood. Witnessed entire kingdoms burn. None of those memories disturbed him as deeply as watching one innocent Omega comfort a crying child while wearing chains. She wasn't thinking about herself. Even now, she thought only of Finn. Kael slowly closed his eyes. How much more? How much more injustice would this pack reveal? The prison sat beneath the Alpha's lodge. Dark. Cold. Silent. The stone walls trapped every sound except the steady dripping of water. The guards pushed Elara into a small cell. The heavy iron door slammed shut behind her. For several long moments, she simply stood there. The room contained nothing except a thin blanket and a wooden bucket. No bed. No window. Only darkness. She quietly sat against the wall and hugged her knees. For the first time since her parents had died, she allowed herself to cry. Not because she feared death. Because she feared failing the people she loved. What will happen to Finn? She whispered. Who will take care of him? Outside the cell, a familiar voice spoke softly. You still worry about others. Elara looked up. Kael stood inside the neighboring cell. Their prisons were separated only by thick iron bars. She gave a weak smile. I suppose I do. He stepped closer. You could have told them. You could have saved yourself. She looked into his golden eyes. They would have killed you. And? She answered without hesitation. Then I couldn't live with myself. Silence filled the prison. Kael had expected courage. He had expected loyalty. But this was something far greater. She valued another life more than her own. That evening, Alpha Darius entered the prison with several warriors. He stopped before Elara's cell. You've had time to think. She slowly stood. Tell me everything. I have nothing more to say. His patience finally broke. He nodded toward the guards. Bring her. The warriors unlocked the cell. They dragged Elara into the interrogation chamber. Kael remained behind the bars, watching silently. He knew exactly what was coming. The chamber was lit by only a few torches. Chains hung from the stone ceiling. The room smelled of cold iron and smoke. Elara was tied to a wooden post. Darius stood before her. I don't enjoy this. But traitors force my hand. He nodded. One guard struck the wooden post beside her with a heavy whip. The loud crack echoed through the room. Elara flinched. But she didn't scream. Who is he? Silence. Another crack. Why was he here? Silence. A third. Who sent him? Elara slowly opened her eyes. No one. I found him dying. I helped him. That is all. Darius stared at her. You still protect him. She whispered. Because he cannot protect himself. Behind the prison bars, Kael clenched his fists so tightly that blood ran from his palms. One command. That was all it would take. His royal guards waited only a day's journey away. One signal. And this prison would fall before sunrise. Yet he remained still. Not because he accepted this cruelty. Because he needed to know whether anyone inside this pack would stand for what was right. Word of Elara's imprisonment spread quickly. Some servants quietly gathered outside the prison after dark. The old healer arrived carrying medicine. A guard blocked his path. The prisoner receives nothing. The healer frowned. She's injured. Those are the Alpha's orders. The old wolf looked toward the prison entrance. Then silently placed the medicine on the snowy ground. If kindness becomes a crime. He whispered. Then this pack has already lost its way. He walked away. Hidden nearby. Finn picked up the forgotten medicine. His small hands trembled. I'll get it to her. He waited until the guards changed shifts. Then quietly slipped toward the back of the prison through a narrow drainage tunnel only children could fit through. Inside the darkness, he finally reached Elara's cell. Elara. She immediately recognized his tiny voice. Finn. He pushed the small bundle through the bars. I brought medicine. And bread. She smiled with tears in her eyes. You shouldn't have come. I told you. I'd save you. She reached through the bars and gently held his little hand. You already have. You reminded me. That I'm not alone. For a moment, the prison no longer felt cold. But neither of them noticed another prisoner silently watching from the next cell. Kael observed the frightened pup risking everything for the woman who had loved him like family. His eyes softened. Then slowly, his expression changed. Not into anger. Into resolve. The test was over. He had seen enough. The Blood Moon Pack had judged itself. And before long, the Lycan King would deliver a judgment of his own.